In this edition of The Color Between the Lines,
And as soon as they meet, there's like this automatic chemistry. But the only thing is that she just recently lost her husband 7 months ago.
we speak with best-selling author Shanora Williams about her book, Beautiful Broken Love. It's a deeply emotional story about love, lost, and second chances. I'm Esther Dillard, chatting with writers, authors, and experts who offer an added perspective for listeners. This is The Color Between the Lines. Before we jump in, I want to remind you to subscribe to the Color Between the Lines YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and also the notification button so you never miss an episode, as well as subscribe to my new Substack newsletter. You can find the link in the description below. On this edition of The Color Between the Lines, we're speaking with an author who has written at least 40 books and is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. Her name is Shanora Williams, and she is an author who likes to write suspense novels full of romance. But this one is a little different. It's a sexy sports romance, and it's called Beautiful Broken Love. Thank you, Shanora Williams. Thank you for joining us on the BIN.
Of course, I'm excited to be here.
Well, first, congratulations on your book. You know, a book, people don't realize that it takes time and effort. It's like a birthing process. What
Yeah.
book number is this now?
You know what? I've lost track of how many. Like, I think after like that 20th book, I was like, you know what? I can't count anymore. It's out of yeah, it's just I'm not sure which number this is. I have to go back and count because
Okay.
there are also books that I had published but unpublished them. So yeah. But it's
Yeah.
40, it's gotta be 40 something. It's 40 something.
Yeah. You're like a mom of three kids, three
Yeah.
boys, and you're a
Right.
sibling with 11 kids in
Mm.
a blended family. Just those two
Yeah.
facts alone made me stop and go, you know? So
Yeah.
how do you find time to write all these books, especially with juggling, being a mom, family person? How do you do that?
I don't know. Honestly, I do not know. I ask myself that all the time, like, how are you doing this? Like, I don't understand how I'm doing it. But I think like I'm one of those people who likes to find ways to do things, even if it means I need to cut out maybe 10 minutes here from scrolling on my phone, because that's a bad habit. It's just me scrolling. Like, just I'm like, okay, let's not do this. Let's actually write a chapter or at least write a couple words, you know. But also I had to create like a routine for myself.
Yeah.
And so like my husband, he works during the day. He goes at like 5. He's off at like maybe 3,
Yeah.
3 at the latest. And my boys go to school. So those hours where they're not here when I'm like, okay, let's work. And if you don't work, you're out of luck because once
Yeah.
they're home, it's done. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the book. The book deals directly with grief
Yeah.
and not superficially. It takes a deep dive. And
Mhm.
how were you, I guess, inspired to use grief in this story with the main character, Davina, who loses her husband, who dies suddenly?
So I was inspired to write the story because of my own loss. Like I lost my brother in 2016, and it was like the summer of 2016, and he had just come back from traveling because he was a professional basketball player. And so he came home for the summer, and I'm glad he did because other countries are fickle about how they pass the bodies to certain things. So um, he passed away. It was just very sudden and very out of the blue. And I just remembered that at the time his fiance, she was pregnant with his kid, and you know they had plans for a future. And I was like, wow, I cannot imagine if I was in that situation, like what I would do with the person that I thought I was going to spend forever with. Like that is shattering. Like it hurts to think about. And so I just took my own pain and grief and all of that and tossed it into the novel. And it was really hard to do because you have to like face that again. But I didn't write it for, I took about maybe a year or two to really get into it. Because that process of like, it talks a lot about healing. So that process of healing is, you know, something that I think you have to do before you try to go and like face this head on. So
Mhm. Mhm. And with loss like that, especially something so close, it takes time. I mean, it may not be 1 year. It may not be 2 years. It ebbs and flows. It comes back and forth. So it's not something that's like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm over it. Let's move on.
Right.
It's not. For those who may not know what this story is about, because this is brand new, this is out maybe a week or so. Can you just talk about what the story is without revealing too much?
So the story is about Davina. She is the CEO of a skincare company, and she's like, big boss, big moves type lady. And she ends up getting the opportunity to have a famous NBA player endorse her company. But it's like as soon as she meets him and as soon as they meet, there's like this automatic chemistry. But the only thing is that she just recently lost her husband 7 months ago. So it's like in her mind, she's like, how am I feeling this for somebody else so soon? Like it's very shocking to her. But the guy, he's like, whoa, like I need her, immediately, like I need her. So, and it sort of forms a bond. Like at first they become friends and then it slowly morphs into a romantic relationship. But it happens very gradually. And what I loved about it is that it was just a natural relationship, in my opinion. Like he was very patient with her. And it was because he was dealing with his own grief too, and he understood her. So I thought that was nice to touch on for that.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about processing emotions just a little while ago, and I think that this is a very big part of the book because
Mhm.
and probably a big part for you writing because you had to process your own emotions while writing this book. And was that a challenge? And how was it a challenge? And what did you I hope that people who would read the book and far as the characters, what they would get from those challenges and how they handled them?
Um, so one thing I did learn while after that loss was that everyone grieves differently. And
Yes.
so like the way that I was grieving was completely different from how my other siblings were grieving. Some could just shut down and didn't want to speak of it at all, and some were like speaking about it all the time to the point where you're like, I don't want to cry, stop talking about it. And then there were those who were just in it, I guess, like in it, and they couldn't get out of it. And I wanted to take that and put that into the story because I thought that was important because I think people are going through certain stages of it and not like maybe you'll see someone and they seem happy, but they may be like completely shattered inside. And I think that was what was happening for the hero in the book for Deke is that he you see this guy and you think wow he's got it made like he's wow, but you don't really know what that person is going through inside. And I think that is a big part of grief. And whew, yeah, that one I don't know, it's very tricky to try and like put that into words, and I tried my best to put it into words as much as I could, but it is very tricky to do, especially when you have to relive it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, right now it's the holiday season and there's a lot of people, even let's say if we're not in the holiday season and it's a birthday time or it's different parts of the year, people a lot of times associate different things with the holidays as being happy and wonderful, but for some people they're dealing with this kind of real talk, and it's not an easy thing to kind of overcome. It's not quick, and you make
No.
that very, very clear in the book
Yeah.
how Davina is dealing with that.
Yeah, that's true. Because especially the holidays, you expect those people to be there. Like I know I have a lot of friends who are like, dang, I really wish like their mom was here or their dad was here or their grandparent was here. And it's kind of I think if you're healed, it's a bittersweet thing. If you're in that good process of healing, but if it is recent and it's fresh, it's just honestly it's pain that you feel. And I think I don't know, trying to navigate that is very hard. I don't know, it's just very hard to navigate that for people. And I think that's why a lot of people were kind of iffy about, reading this book right now because they were like, no, girl, this is too close. This is, this is
Right.
the holidays. I'm supposed to be happy and cheerful. So I did get a lot of people said that they were going to wait to read it after the fact. But I can understand that because I personally don't think I would want to read anything this heavy, this close to the holidays because I would probably be sobbing and ruining the mood for everybody. So we don't need that.
I know. I read from your bio that you have 11 siblings from a
Mhm.
blended family, and your characters have siblings.
Yeah.
I grew up in a household where my mom and dad, they adopted children and took in more than 30 foster children into their home. So it was
Wow.
a house that was a lot of activity, and
Yes.
there were different relationships and everything. So
Mm.
was some of the characters, their relationships and things reflected from your family, and why did you choose to make those, I guess, many of those relationships evident in the story because you didn't have to?
Yeah, so Davina, her sister is literally just like my sister, one of my sisters. She's the closest in age to me on my mother's side, and she's literally like down like her to the T, minus the baking and the cooking part. But she's very like similar to her in attitude and personality. And she's someone who likes to keep a smile and try to stay positive even when it's, everything feels low. And there are moments in the book where she does try to lift Davina up, like, come on, let's move, let's get up, and there were moments where I was like, no, I don't want to move. I don't want to get up. And my sister was like, let's go. Like, yeah, like we're not going to sit here in this funk. So I appreciated that about her. And with Deke and his sisters, he had I think he had a good relationship with them. And it reminded me a lot of my relationship with my brothers, because they are always doing something that doesn't make sense. And you're like, why are we doing this? We're on the phone and they're just like, so I did this and I need help. And I'm like, of course you do. And I feel like that's how his sisters were. Like his big sister was like, what are you into now? And I thought I did take that from real life. Yeah.
Mhm. Now, although the story is about love and it's about loss and it's about sports and all these wonderful things, what's your overarching message that you hope that people will get when they pick up this book?
I I would say that I hope people just feel some kind of hope. I think that is the main thing, is like there is light somewhere. Like it's not always dark. And that was something that I did not believe in. I thought like this is just going to be forever. This is bleak. I don't, what's the point of living? Like this is weird, that somebody is gone, that was so close to you. But I think it kind of shows like there are different ways to heal and there are ways to get through it. And I think it also is important to have a support system, to get through these if you can, because it is hard to deal with grief by yourself, especially if you're someone who's prone to mental health. It's like if you have a mental health problem, like for me, I do suffer depression and anxiety. That is a thing for me. So I can't be in my feelings for too long, or it leads just to a darker, darker place. And I think the main thing, yes, is just to heal, to hope. I hope people feel a little bit of hope here. Maybe they'll feel like that bittersweet feeling, but they'll know like, wow, this is life and it sucks sometimes, but it's also beautiful. So I hope that is what they take from it.
Oh, well, it's interesting that I could draw parallels with personal things
Mhm.
and then political
Yeah.
things too, because there's a lot of people that are feeling loss from
Mm.
the loss of
Yes.
election. So
Yes.
use some of those lessons in there as well, because people
Mm.
are, dealing with what is going to happen next.
Yes.
Where are we going? So it's
Yes.
interesting. You can take personal and a different ways of looking
Mhm.
at it. Great,
Oh,
wonderful story. Thanks, Shanora Williams, for joining us
thank
on
you.
the BIN.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of The Color Between the Lines. If this conversation actually moved you, make sure that you subscribe to The Color Between the Lines on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Esther Dillard.